President Trump expressed confidence Friday as senior members of his administration prepared for in-person peace talks with Iran.
We're going to open up the Gulf with or without them, but that'll be open. We're going to be, or the Strait as they call it, and I think it's going to go pretty quickly. And if it doesn't, we'll be able to finish it off one way or the other.
Vice President JD Vance is on his way to Pakistan's capital of Islamabad, where he will participate in those talks alongside Special Envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner.
Look, we're looking forward to the negotiation. I think it's going to be positive. We'll, of course, see. As the President of the United States said, if the Iranians are willing to negotiate in good faith, we're certainly willing to extend the open hand. If they're going to try to play us, then they're going to find that the negotiating team is not that receptive.
President Trump told the New York Post Friday that U.S. warships are being reloaded with ammunition ready to be used for strikes in case this weekend's negotiations fail. He posted on Truth Social earlier, appearing to once again threaten Iran, saying, quote, "The only reason they are alive today is to negotiate." CBS News political reporter Zak Hudak joins me now. Zak, what do we know about the vice president's role in these talks?
Lindsay, his role is very much to be leading this particular delegation to these talks. We have over the past few weeks, it's become clearer and clearer that the Iranians have lost faith in Steve Witkoff, the special envoy, and in Jared Kushner, who at the early stages had been leading these negotiations. You can read a little bit into why we've seen the president repeatedly move back these deadlines with Iran, and there's been debate over exactly what's been negotiated in the past. So you can see why they want to deal with someone different, but it's also something that JD Vance has, frankly, put out for years. As a senator, he was much more of an anti-interventionalist than these folks are. And additionally, I would say, since this conflict has begun, when he's done interviews, he's focused on things like exit strategy, and he's emphasized that regime change is not a goal of the U.S. in this operation. So I think those things all combined have made him a much more trusted negotiator in the eyes of the Iranians.
Iran is saying in order for negotiations to start, there must be a ceasefire in Lebanon. Continues to insist it was included in the original agreement. CBS News has learned Israel may have convinced the U.S. to change its position on that. What can you tell us?
We have heard from officials that President Trump initially had been told that the ceasefire did in fact apply to the entire region, which would include Israel and Lebanon. The reality is the day after, Israel immediately began bombing Lebanon in their largest strike of this entire conflict. After President Trump spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu, he changed his tune. He came from that meeting saying, actually, the reality was it did not include Lebanon. So the U.S. has put out some varying messaging on this, and I think it's frustrated the Iranians. But now we've seen scrambling in the last few days, and there will be in Washington here a delegation from Israel and from Lebanon meeting next week, a meeting brokered by the U.S. that will hopefully bring that to a close. But it's clearly a hurdle for these talks that will be happening tomorrow in Pakistan.
And you've been taking a deep dive into what the president has been saying about the Strait since the war started. What did you find?
Lindsay, we've found that his language has changed repeatedly. Early on, he was saying essentially that we would open the Strait very quickly. It's obviously been weeks now, and we've seen the economic downfall. Specifically on these ultimatums he's given Iran to open the Strait or else. He's threatened their infrastructure. We've seen him change the deadlines on that repeatedly. On the 21st of last month, he said they had 48 hours or else there would be severe consequences. He'd be targeting energy infrastructure. Then, 2 days later, he gave them a 5-day extension, which he said was based on the depth of the conversations that they'd been having and the tone of them. Then, a mere 3 days later, he gave another 10-day extension because Iran had allowed 10 tanker ships to move through the Strait. So he said, you let 10 ships through, I give you 10 days. Then we got through those 10 days and reached Tuesday of this week, when even earlier that day, he was threatening to target infrastructure, to target bridges, to target critical things that Iran really does not want damage that would affect the lives of civilians there. And come that evening, right when we got up to the deadline, he said, okay, we're going to have a 2-week ceasefire, and that leaves us where we are. So it really is sort of a carrot and the stick strategy where he tells them, I'm coming for you. And then if they give him some positive vibes in the negotiations, he says, okay, we'll kick the rock a little bit. But it has been a constantly changing message, I would say, from the president over these past few weeks.
Zak Hudak, thank you.